Hello, everyone. It's your host, Amanda Eke, and I have some amazing news. Starting this fall, The Poet Speaks is coming to your TV screens. Yes, that's right. After 8 amazing seasons as a podcast, The Poet Speaks with Amanda Eke is now a TV show, airing on the Archaeology Channel's new streaming service, Heritage. Everyone get ready for a visual feast of spoken word performances and deep dives into the minds of poets from all over the world. Now, something extraordinary is coming, and you won't want to miss a single moment. Stay tuned. Everyone, welcome back to the Poet Speaks podcast. Now, our next guest, award-winning poet, writer, performer, public speaker, educator, and volunteer and activist. Her debut poetry collection is Taking Off My Black and White Saddle Shoes, Cleveland Poems. It's a memoir and verse spanning from her birth to the present. She's a veteran English teacher and reading teacher, was taught on many levels, including teaching freshman composition at Purdue University. She caught the open mic bug before taking an early retirement and relocating to the Phoenix metro area in Arizona. Everyone, please welcome to the Poet Speaks podcast, Marlana-Patrice Pugh Hamer. Marlana, how are you?
Thank you for welcoming. So great to be here. I'm doing pretty good today. How about yourself?
I'm doing very, very good. Better now that we're talking. So go ahead, tell us, before we like to begin, tell us where you located in the world right now. Where are we talking to you from? Is it beautiful? Is it sunny? Is it rainy? What's going on where you're at?
Well, I'm in Phoenix metro area, and that's a very expansive area, and we're hot. I didn't look at my phone, but it's been over 100 degrees lately. So many of us are inside, a perfect time to write, read, and reflect. So I've been doing a little bit of both.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, yeah, Phoenix. So you're West Coast, kind of towards there. We got a West Coast, East Coast connection is how we're talking. So tell us a little bit about yourself. I mean, were you born and raised in Phoenix, Arizona area? I know your bio says you relocated. Where did you relocate from then?
That's an excellent question. Many people think I'm from the Midwest, Cleveland, Ohio, born and raised, and I'm proud to say my debut book, I focused on my life in memoir and verse, my life to present. So it pretty much covers me transitioning to moving here. However, it doesn't exactly explain, well, if you put the poems together, it does in a sense. I came here, took an early retirement for the purpose of starting a new life. I would say a second career. And my focus, I always wanted to write more, perform more. I had interest in those areas most of my life. And being a teacher had some fulfilling moments. Especially helping students to be young authors. I was in a special program with them for almost 10 years, where I allowed my students to get class credit for writing books. Many of them were poetry. Also, on the personal side, my parents had passed, both of them, but separately in 2005. And we had to deal with that loss. And also, I stayed in Cleveland for a length of time, even after they passed, in order to settle their estates, and also to just make peace with what I needed to do next. And I reflected upon it and decided it was time to move on. Sometimes you just have to make those hard choices. And I felt a new place, living near relatives, making new friends, finding new ways to express myself. So I did take the retirement. I felt it was time to do something else.
Absolutely. Wow, such an amazing story. So tell us a little bit, where did writing kind of find you in that path? So like you said, it was a bit of a second career. So you grew up, were you any type of a writer, any type of a poet, or was this something really truly, it just popped for you later on in life?
That's an excellent question. I will say I've been writing for a very, very long time. I have a little notebook. I should have brought it as a visual. It's actually a little spiral notebook. I wrote a few poems in when I was 9 years old. So if I can pinpoint when I started, I guess the little notebook would say I was 9 years old. I always enjoyed writing. My mother, just as a side note, she taught me how to write cursive writing when my teachers failed. I even mentioned that in my poetry book. And she was also a writer. She wrote poetry, songs, even a children's book, but she never got published. So I would say my mother was a strong influence. I dedicated my book to my mother. And just being exposed to the arts, I've journaled for many, many years. I started with a little diary, and you know how young girls get those diaries, and then you're like, this is too little, those little books. And then I started writing, buying journals in bookstores, and I have several. So it's a combination of many things. But I will say age 9 was the beginning. And being a teacher, I was busy checking papers and so forth. So I needed, well, more time. And I finally got it when I retired.
Yeah, no, that's really amazing. I'm so curious for you though. I mean, what was the kind of, you had mentioned it a little bit, just you needed a change in life. I mean, was there just an impetus? Was there one moment where you were just like, all right, let me go write my debut book now after teaching for so many years? And we'll get into that a little later with your debut collection, Taking Off My Black and White Saddle Shoes, Cleveland Poems. But was there just one moment where where things just changed for you and you were like, all right, no, I'm writing full time. This is where I'm going now?
Well, I won't say teacher burnout. We don't want to say that. But I will say it was a culmination of several events. As I said, my parents both passed in the same year. That's a lot. And also, I had to take on more family responsibilities. So at one point, I had to take a break, sick leave from my job in order to handle some personal things, which I don't want to go into detail about. But that was my breaking point. It was very emotional. As I said, maybe when I write in the future, I'll explain more. But it was a point where I've had enough. I need to go. And I know many of us reach that when you feel like fight or flight. I guess I was in the flight mode, and I'm happy I did it because sometimes you have to close a door and open a new one, and that was basically what I did.
Amen. Absolutely. Yes. Sometimes you really do have to close one door to open up another one. I think that's very, very inspirational for folks, no matter what stage they're at. I think a lot of people don't know how to start over, don't know how to reclaim something that maybe has always been inside of them. So thank you so much for sharing that. Tell us a little bit about, I'm so curious about, so you were, you describe yourself in a veteran teacher in your bio. I'm just curious how teaching, I mean, like you mentioned your students I mean, what was, going from teacher, being a veteran teacher for so long, first off, tell us what school district, but going from being a teacher to now a full-time writer, I mean, what are some synonymous things you see maybe in the fields? Did your students really kind of inspire you in some ways to even write what you're writing now? Tell us a little bit about that trajectory, switching from a career field of being a teacher to a poet.
Okay, that's also you're giving me such great questions. Well, I will say that being a teacher and being a poet actually they merged. And I was a little I won't say I'm shocked, but right now I know you didn't mention it, but I'm a teaching assistant with a group called Community Literature Initiative, which is located in Los Angeles. And so poets are have an opportunity to be teaching artists. If not everybody, but if you get the chance to do it, I'll say do it. So it's not so much that you're just sitting at home writing. Some people have that kind of image that, oh, I can just lay back in my favorite chair and write. We are very proactive. And I'm saying we because I'm part of the Community Literature Initiative clique, if you want to use that term, the crew. We are actively writing, reading, performing, doing things in our community. And as a teacher, I did that too. Because, for example, I'll give you an example. It was Cleveland Metropolitan um, School System. They changed the name many times, but I think that's what they call themselves now. I was involved in the union. So I was a delegate or whatever position I held at the time. So we would actually go out, do petitions. We had a strike for a minute. So we were vocal and did things. And of course, being a teacher, you speak all the time. So some of the skills that I had, I developed as a teacher are still being utilized. And recently I had to do a PowerPoint, and I learned that as in my academic studies and so forth. So skills are transferable. And I'm finding myself, hey, wait a minute, I'm still a teacher. And I'm not knocking that because I enjoy teaching and expressing myself and sharing my knowledge with other people. And I recently did, I'll say, we had the beach writers writing conference this past weekend, and I was a presenter. So I spoke to an audience of at least, I don't remember how many people, at least 40 people. So as I'm saying, I'm sorry if I'm giving you too long an answer. Um, the skills are transferable. So I don't feel like I've stopped being a teacher. I'm still a teacher. I was always a writer. I was always a poet, even those things if those things weren't being utilized to their fullest potential.
Absolutely, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think teaching, being a teacher, a poet, they are one and the same path field and pathway because you're teaching and giving grace and giving to the people, right? Whoever is with willing ears as a poet, they're learning from you. So I absolutely see that. Then just the mechanics of the everyday, crossing the T's, dotting the I's, like you had mentioned. Awesome, awesome. So, I found something interesting about you. You described you caught the open mic bug, obviously, before, like you said, in early retirement. Tell us more about that experience on stage that you had where you just caught that open mic bug and tell us, like, what stage you were at in your life. I mean, because again, I think so many people, they're scared and they're closeted poets for years, decades, and they don't come and give their gift with the world at all. Was the quote by Viola Davis, the best stories are those in the graves, because so many people don't come out, tell their story, right? Tell us about that experience where you just caught that open mic bug before your early retirement.
Well, again, I can trace this back to childhood. On some of the interviews I've had, people say, I've said that in church, they used to have us read little passages for like Easter. So I recall doing that at least once. And then in church, I also was in some quote unquote talent programs where I read some Gwendolyn Brooks or Maya Angelou. So that was probably a little prior. And then we used to act out plays, my siblings and I, in the backyard. And I used to be like the star. I used to be Cinderella or Sleeping Beauty, something of that nature. Then in high school, I dabbled a little bit in drama and even thought about becoming an actress. So there's, there are threads. It didn't just boom, I'm gonna do it kind of thing. So then I became a Toastmaster, and Toastmasters International. I My highest award was winning the humorous speech contest, District 10. So I always wanted to express myself, and I felt I had a talent. I did have a teacher long ago who said, "No, you're a writer. You're not a speaker." But as we all know, we do all of that now. And those that are afraid to speak, I encourage you to join Toastmasters. It's a big commitment, but I was in it for quite some years, and I just don't have time for it now, but I would like to go back to it. So the open mic thing was like, okay, I want to go out and express myself. And I used to go to some places, you might call them dive bars, some of these places where you do open mics. But the Tremont area in Ohio, in Cleveland, is a very artistic area. So I was never fearful. And I did go to some of those, and it was a release. So I could go on and on about some of the threads of why I do this, but I enjoy it. And now that I'm here in Phoenix, I do make an effort to go out even at night. Although, if my parents were still here, they'd be like, no, don't go. But safety was never an issue for me. I just did it for the joy of it.
Tell us a little bit more. You had mentioned you did it and it's just you got release. Tell us a little bit more about what that release really means to you.
Okay. Well, I usually had a little folder with which poems I figured I might perform. And then I would kind of feel out the audience and look at who performed before me and select what I would do accordingly. And so I tried to read the audience ahead of time and present something. Sometimes they want something dealing with emotions, and sometimes you can sense they need something um, more humorous. So it's a variety of ways. You look at your audience. That's what I usually do when I'm like, okay, I think, and I look at who's there. And so I try to involve the audience in what I'm going to present. And obviously, I try to connect with them and try to allow them to experience what I'm experiencing. And it's a real joy to feel that you've touched people and they can give you snaps and claps and relate to what you have to release and give to them as a kind of gift. So that's my best answer right now.
No, absolutely, absolutely. I think that's a beautiful thing. Very, very beautiful. Well, let's get it. Let's get into it. The book of the hour, your debut poetry collection, "Taking Off My Black and White Saddle Shoes," Cleveland poems. Tell us a bit about what that. Well, first and foremost, I mean, what has been the reaction so far? How have you? What has been the process to finally from conception to now? Your book gets released to the world and it's your debut. Tell us a little bit about that process and the inspiration behind it.
Okay. Well, I'll try to keep it brief. First of all, I did have my virtual open mic. I believe it was on May 19th. I may have the date wrong, but it was on a Sunday. And I was told I had about, give or take, 40 people, which I was told is good for an online book release. And because I live in now I live in Phoenix area, and my audience is kind of widespread. Like I have a niece who lives in Africa. I had a nephew who came who lives in Dayton, people Phoenix, people Los Angeles who are my friends. So it was even somebody I think from Colorado. So it worked out well. I was happy with that. So that was decided. My publisher is World Stage Press. we decided early on we were going to do it that way. And I did get pre-orders. So then I also made bookmarks. Well, I didn't make them, but one of our um, publishing managers made them. Her name's Emily Ann. So I've been working on that. So it's an active thing. As I said, a writer doesn't just sit back and uh, wait for the royalties to come. So the book, if you can see it, I'll just hold it up for a minute. Um, People are asking, well, where did the shoe thing come from? And I'm kind of, it just evolved. These are actually my shoes on the cover, and they find that an interesting point to jump off on. And I felt like since I like fashion, I could write about the various shoes I've worn in my life, and it just fit. And I had one of my teachers, Community Literature Initiative, has publishing classes, poetry publishing classes. I talked it over with two of the people I've been working with, my teacher and the teaching assistant. And I pitched pretty much the different themes I was going to have in my book. And they were like, no, no, no. And this one stuck. So this book is about my life from beginning to end, well, to present, and moving here. And the shoes, as I said, are the tying. Do you want me to name what the shoes are? Or do
Yeah,
you
let us know. Yeah, what's the shoes? Name them.
Okay, well, logically, baby shoes are the first shoes. And then I go to sneakers, which is funny. We have a picture, all four of me and my siblings, we all have on sneakers. So that was like, wow. So I put a certain key pictures in the book that fit. Black and white saddle shoes that goes with me going to high school, a Catholic high school, high heels, my formative years where I was trying to, make a name for myself and get out there, party, all those things we young people do. Flat shoes reflects the difficult times in my life. And taking off my shoes finally to have bare feet to reveal all of the things I've experienced and learned is the last section of the book.
My goodness, wow. So the shoes are really a metaphor for each kind of place in your life. I love that. So going from, yeah, no, already you get that visual going from those sneakers to heels to flat shoes to finally barefoot. That's such a powerful but also very unique metaphor to kind of describe your life in these different stages as to what type of shoes you were wearing. It does make people, I think, even though I haven't been able to read your debut book, just from hearing that description, it makes me kind of ponder on my own life, the shoes that I've worn at the different times in my life, and how that really is a reflection, metaphor, if you will, for where you're at, who you're trying to be. Right? What is it? I think also, what is the term that people use? You dress for the job that you want. So I love how you describe the heels. It's like, when you were trying to be, when you were trying to be out here, you're trying to be out and partying, right? It described perfectly where you were at. No, that's such a good thing. Um, Kind of go into a little bit what kind of was the catalyst for you to make the shoes intricate part, moving part of your debut and the poems in there? Why did you choose shoes out of anything else one could use? I know you said you love fashion, but you could have maybe used a hat, glasses, whatever may have you. What was it about shoes specifically in the journey with how with our feet, right?
Well, as I said, it was a fluid kind of thing. So, if I needed to write out how it happened, I really couldn't explain it to you. But I will say I also like to take pictures, photography. It's just, a fun thing for me. And I don't know some of the things I was writing about were my formative um, things that stayed with me are still with me. And those saddle shoes, they just seem like a dominant image of, they were kind of like the at the center of some of the poems I was writing, because I did write poems about my experiences. Well, they're in the book about my experiences being in a Catholic school. And prior to that, I had been in a public school most of my life. So the Catholic school, they put me up to what grade was I in when they put me up? I think they put me up to grade 10, because when I went to Catholic school, I was in what they call 9A. Was it 9A or 9B? I know you're too young to remember how they broke up the grades, but I was in the second part of the ninth grade, and they said, "Oh, your grades are good enough, so we'll put you in the 10th grade." And 10th, 11th, 12th. So I was in Catholic school for 3 years. And then I went to a Catholic university. And if you look carefully on the cover, I know you can't see it, but the name of my college are on my shoes too. So I wrote that on later. But so that was a pivotal part of my life. And so the shoes just seemed like, like you said, a real metaphor that I could work with and tie it in. And I have in the book, if you don't mind me mentioning, I have quotes in regard to each pair of shoes, famous people and some poets. And I also have a Cicely Tyson quote. So I tried to tie it to popular culture too. And most people are into clothes and fashion and on some level. So I tried to make it relatable.
Absolutely. Tell us a bit about what's the reaction been? What have your community, what have they really, what is this kind of harnessed in terms of people's feelings and their reactions to your debut?
Well, some people I've read perform many of the poems over a period of time, not just since the book came out, but when I was out there in Cleveland at night, I did do some of these poems for open mics, and majority of them enjoyed these poems. And so that encouraged me to say, well, hey, maybe I finally need to put this book together. And people have, well, one lady, I'll give you an example. Recently, when I was in Los Angeles, I was telling her about one of my poems, and I happened to have the book with me. And she read the poem, and then I gave her a bookmark, which has the QR code. And right on the spot, she ordered my book. Now, I'm not saying everybody's going to do that, but hopefully, and I've been given opportunities to sell my book, and I have done that at some Juneteenth events recently, and I did get sales. And I have friends who have come to me and bought the book. So it's looking positive right now. And of course, it's a lengthy process, as you know.
Absolutely. But we'll have Marlena, her debut, Taking Off My Black and White Saddle Shoes, Cleveland Poems. We'll have the link in the description for everyone to check out that book and go buy it and go be inspired. It's really, really something quite amazing. So Marlena, we're really appreciative. You're dropping so many gems and really telling us a bit about your life and where you're at and where you came from. Tell us kind of when was it, if you could name a specific time, we kind of talked about your childhood and your writing, and you got mentioned at 9 years old. But was there any specific time outside of that where you just knew I'm a writer? Was there a moment that hit you? Any type of moment that just beat you in the, I don't know, just hit you like a freight train where you know, hey, no, I'm a writer for sure.
Well, I guess well, I did mention about the Toastmasters thing. When you write speeches, some of that, is creative nonfiction or whatever we want to call it. So every time I won an award of some kind for speaking, And as I said, the teacher said I really wasn't a speaker. That tied into the writing. So writing and speaking to me are in tandem. It's
Mm,
really never one or the other. But I will give an example, and I actually won some money.
mhm,
It wasn't $1 million, but I was in the Hessler Street Fair annual Hessler Street Fair poetry contest, and they said you wrote the poem, you submitted it, but you also had to perform the poem. And so you were judged on both. You had to perform it in front of a live audience,
mm.
and then they would decide who was the winner. Now, I won second place and got a check, and I will not tell you which rank I really deserve, but I guess you can guess. It was me, three men and me. So I just leave that one alone.
For sure, for
But
sure.
I was so elated, and I was like, "Yes, yes." And that was a little before I moved here, actually.
For sure. Wow, wow, wow. I want to know, and I'm curious, and when it comes to you, you have such an amazing story, especially this idea of just starting over again, becoming really engaging in writing, going to open mics, at a later stage in life. I mean, if you could give advice to our listeners, we have such a wide demographic, diverse array of people all around the world that love to listen to this show, and they're at different stages of their lives, but they all tune into this community here on this podcast because they love poetry, they love to write. What would your advice be to folks, in terms of starting that second wind in their career, no matter what stage they're at? A lot of people, they probably feel like, no, it's too late for me. Why I can't do that anymore. What is your advice? What do you tell those folks, seeing that you've done it so beautifully? What would you tell those people?
That's a wonderful question. I actually wrote my book, if you don't mind me saying, my target audience is young Black women, and
Mm,
then, of course, secondarily, women in general. I want women to know, and even men, that we're still here. And the fact that we're older doesn't mean we need assistance. Our minds
mm,
hopefully are still working. And if they are, use your talents.
mm,
There was a friend who spoke at the writers conference about our talents. And my parents often spoke about that too. It's in the Bible that you can't hide your talents under a rock. You must, and I'm impelled. It's like I have to do it. And coming here, yeah, I could play golf and do some of the other things that people hike and so on and so forth. But when I get up in the morning, I'm often ready to write. And that's my favorite time to write. I feel that many people, they do want to share their experiences. And my speech at the conference was writing a memoir in verse. So it's very popular now. You reach a certain age, 50, 60, 70, you want to help other people or just tell the world what your life was like. And I feel I've reached that point and gain knowledge, which I want to share and help other people live quality lives in the process. And I will say I've encountered a lot of people, some of them older than I am. I'm like, wow.
mm,
But they're out there writing too. So they inspire me to keep going. And I consider myself, for example, the Black grandma Moses, and I don't have any kids, but I started quote unquote late writing, but she was prolific. And Picasso drew pictures into his 90s. There are countless stories about people being prolific at a later age. So I'm following their lead.
Absolutely. Wow. Such a beautiful statement, such a beautiful testimony. We really thank you so much for sharing that, sharing your grace and your wisdom and just your story. We really do appreciate that. So, Marlana, we have one final question for you on the Poet Speaks podcast. Why do you need to get your words out?
Well, I said this on another podcast. I feel I am a vessel and I am a religious person. I feel, well, some people, they become ministers later in life. I said to myself, no, that's not what I want to do. But I'm ministering through my words to help others to live quality lives and to learn from their mistakes and realize whatever mistakes you make, that's not going to uh, defeat you. You learn from your mistakes and move forward. And, whatever shoes you have on, uh, those can be fixed if necessary or get some new ones and move. Just move and do what you feel you must do in a positive light to help everybody, to help the world be a better place.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. To be a vessel. What an amazing, amazing thing. All right. Well, Marlana, tell us as we wrap up, what is next for you in 2024? Any events, places where we can also find all of the amazing work that you're doing in terms of websites, social media? Please do tell the folks.
Thank you so much. Well, I'm posting as often as I can on Instagram. I'm not on TikTok, but I'm in various other places. Instagram, I like to do reels and I like to post like what activities I'm going to be participating in soon. My handle is MARLANAPPH, and it's me with a hat on, so you can't miss that. I also like hats, but and accessories. See, I have a scarf on today. And I will say I'm trying to be in events through Gig Salad. If you want to book me, you can go to Gig Salad. I am on that app, and I think it's an excellent one for creatives. Also, open mic wise, there's one I want to attend. It's at the Palabras. I think I'm pronouncing it right. Palabras Bilingual Bookstore in Phoenix. It will be July 13th. I believe the time is 7 to 9 p.m. And if everything works out, you'll see me there. And I will have some of my bookmarks as well. And if you're in the Phoenix area interested in getting my book, just contact me through Instagram. I'm also on Facebook, my full name on Facebook. I think that's enough for now, right?
Well, thank you so much. No, so everyone, Marlana's information, all those links will be down below in the description box, no matter where you're listening to this podcast at. No matter the streaming service, check the description box with all of Marlana's links. All right, Marlana, thank you so much for being an amazing guest today on the Poet Speaks podcast.
Thank you so much. It was an honor and a pleasure.
Absolutely. All right, everyone, again, all of Marlana's links will be in the details box down below. Everyone, this is the Poet Speaks podcast. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.